Gemara and Sukkah. We all know that we say Hallel very often. We say Hallel on Yom Tovim. We say Hallel on Reish Chodesh. And the Gemara starts off with an idea. It brings down one of the psukim that we say towards the end of Hallel. So Gemara and Sukkah says, Hu oimer baruch haba, v'hein oimrim baruch Hashem. We know at the end of Hallel, there's a pasuk baruch haba b'shem Hashem. So the Gemara says is that the way that they did it back then was the Chazan, the Shliach Tzibur, would say Baruch Haba, the beginning of the pasuk, and then everybody else would respond with B'Shem Hashem, the next few words. Baruch Haba Chazan, B'Shem Hashem, everybody in the shul, everybody in the minyan. Now, Hallel needs to be said by everybody. Hallel needs to be said by everybody, and everybody needs to say the entire Hallel. So if the Chazan is saying Baruch Haba, and you don't repeat what the Chazan says, it doesn't say Baruch Haba, and then everybody responds Baruch Haba. Rather, the Chazan says Baruch Haba, and everybody continues with the next couple words, B'Shem Hashem. So you're not repeating what the Chazan said. So how am I being yoytze my mitzvah d'Rabbanan of saying Hallel? How am I being yoytze my mitzvah if I'm not saying the words? Now we have that all the time. Friday night there's going to be Kiddush. Anybody that wants to make their own Kiddush, just let me know. You could, but you don't have to. But you need to make Kiddush Friday night. How are you yoytze Kiddush because I get up there and I say Vayer Vayivoker? How are you yoytze Kiddush with that? You need to say Kiddush. So over here, the Gemara says, over here in bold, Mikan, from here we learn L'Shomea Ka'ona, somebody who hears something, it's as if they said it themselves. And we use that all the time in davening, right? We use that all the time in many, many things, right? We're going to have a bracha on Rosh Hashanah al Tkiya Shofar, or Lishmaya Kol Shofar. Lishmaya Kol Shofar. And everybody's going to not say the bracha, they'll answer Amen. You're yoytze, you fulfill what you need to do by listening to what the Chazan says. So let's just see the Rashi. Hu oimer baruch haba v'heim oimer baruch Hashem. V'baruch haba soimchin alav. As far as saying the words baruch haba, which the tzibur does not say, soimchim alav, they rely on him. On him, who is that? The Chazan. Ve'ein oinin, and they don't actually say those words. Le'atevas atzman, those words. V'lei haleluka, and they don't say whatever the Chazan says, they're not saying. Mikan nilmad, from here we learn l'she'ena yodea le'likreis v'le'lanois, somebody that doesn't know how to read. Baruch Hashem, everybody here is literate, everybody knows how to pick up a siddur and read, but somebody that wouldn't know how to read, v'le'lanois, and can't even respond, cannot repeat, im shoma, if he hears, and I have this in bold because Rashi adds a few more words. Im shoma, if he hears, the kivein liboy. How would you translate the words kivein liboy? Go ahead. Kavana in your heart. Okay, so how do you translate kavana? Intend, good, I like it. Concentrate. Direction. So if you intended, you concentrated, you directed your heart, lishmaya, to hear what was said, afal pi shaloi ona, even though you didn't respond, you didn't say the same words, yotza, you are yoytze. Okay, so at this point, let's just pause over here. We have over here from Hallel, since the minig in the times of the Gemara was that not everybody said every word of Hallel, the Chazan said some things, and then we said the next thing, that if we have concentration, we intend, we direct our hearts to hear it, we're yoytze, and that is the big, famous, enormous rule called Shomea Ka'ona, which we use all the time, that when you hear something, it's as if you said it. Let's see next little line of Gemara, and then let's talk about it for a second. Bo minei Rabbi Chia bar Abba. They asked a question from Rabbi Chia bar Abba. Shama v'loi ona mahu. If you heard something, but you didn't say it, you just heard it, you didn't say it, what is the halacha? So based on what we just said, the Gemara earlier, what should be the halacha? You're yoytze or you're not yoytze? You are yoytze, excellent. Amar lahu, so we responded to him, Chakima, the wise men, V'sifraya. Rashi explains that to mean the rabbeim of the children and the students. V'reishei Amma, the heads of the nation, the leaders. V'darshaya, and all the Groisa Darshanim, all the I don't know, all those people that your great aunts sent to you on WhatsApp, because they said something inspirational. All the darshaners or all the public speakers, right?
Yeah, positive is poseto.
Oh. Yeah. Amru, they all said, so we have the wise men, the teachers, the heads of the nation, all the public speakers on Torah anytime, they've all said what? Amru, they all said, Shama v'le'ana yatsa, that if you heard something and you did not say the words, you just heard it, you're yoitze. So I just have a small little question on this little Gemara. Very often the Gemara will ask a question and we'll want to know what's the halacha. What's the halacha if somebody, makes a kinyan on something? What's the halacha if somebody gives an isha a get in a questionable way? What's the halacha if I have a sukkah that the schach looks like this and doesn't look like that? And the Gemara will respond, Amar Abaya, Amar Rava, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, or Amar Rav, right? The Gemara will tell you the Amar Roim, tell you the halacha. Over here, Rav Chia bar Abba asked a question, well, what's the halacha? Do I actually have to say the words or could I just listen? And then they responded to Rav Chia bar Abba, well, all the professionals, and that's what it says, Chakimaya, okay, that might be the Chachamim, right? Sifraya, the teachers, the heads of the nation, all the Torah anytime people, all the professionals, all the professional pedagogues, they all say that it's good. I don't know, why don't we just dig up Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak or Rav or Abaya or Rava or all the traditional usual suspects, all the Heilig Ameroim that tell us the halacha that from their mouths we live. Why don't we just say, I don't know, find an Abaya. Amar Abaya Avada, you're yoitze. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, you're yoitze. The Gemara responds to Reb Chia bar Abba, all the professionals say that you're yoitze. That's my small little question on this Gemara. And I'd like to talk about this idea. Let's say there's a mitzvah to be done. You have a mitzvah to put on tefillin, right? Velvel. If you don't put on tefillin, is there any way that you could possibly be yotzei the mitzvah of tefillin? No. Right? Could you, listen to the sound effects of somebody else putting on tefillin? Could you watch him? Could you, cheer him on? Stand there on the side with pom-poms, go. Does that help you fulfill your chiyuv of putting on tefillin? What? Can you make him a shliach? Could you ask him to do it for you? So if you have a mitzvah to do something, how could you possibly be yotzei that mitzvah without doing it? Let's make it more specific. If I have a mitzvah to say something, I have a mitzvah to say, let's talk about Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema. I have a mitzvah to say Kriya Shema. Now it happens to be with Kriya Shema, you can't be yotzei by listening to somebody else, but if there's a mitzvah to say something, and we're going to go through certain types of mitzvahs of saying things, and there's going to be a distinction. There's a lot of things that we have to say, and some things Shomea Ka'ona is going to work, and some things it won't. But if I have a mitzvah to say something, how could I possibly be yotzei? How could I have fulfilled my chiyuv if I didn't do it? What? Intention, right? That's right. That's exactly what we're saying. Shomea Ka'ona, if I just hear it and I intend and I mechaven my heart, I direct my heart, so then it's all good. But if the mitzvah is to say it, how does intention work? Like a lot of times people say, I wanted to wake up in the morning. I really planned on waking up in the morning. I planned on being on time this year. I planned on picking up my mess. I planned on doing a good thing, a mitzvah. But and we know that doesn't work, right? If you planned on waking up this morning on time, and for some reason you didn't wake up this morning on time, are you still going to get a present, or are you going to get an absent? Go ahead. That's right. Okay, fine. So let's bring that even just to speaking words. Speaking words. If there's a mitzvah to say certain words, there's a mitzvah to say Hallel. So how am I yotzei because I heard him say Baruch Haba? I have to say Baruch Haba. Okay, he's saying the intention counts for you, and I want to develop that idea a little bit, right? Guys, all the time, they sit around in the afternoon or whatever it is, and they have conversations, right? People have conversations about things. They exchange ideas, right? So, I don't know, Yuda, tell me something that's important to you. Just something, an idea, a topic, something that's you like to talk about in your life. I don't know, it could be a sport, an interest, a subject, a piece of Gemara, something that's important to you. Piece of Gemara. Okay, fine. So let's say you have a strong opinion about a certain piece of Gemara, that you understand it a certain way. And you're schmoozing with Meir sitting next to you about that piece of Gemara. And Meir has a different opinion on that Gemara. He understands it differently than you. So the two of you guys get into a discussion, and you present your way, and you try to convince him, and he explains why he doesn't like your way and why his way is more correct, and you have an exchange, right? What's the point of that exchange? Just for discussion. But what's the point? Yeah, so why discuss it? He thinks what he thinks, you think what you think, and I mean, there's many points. It could be, what? Hang on, what? Go ahead. What do you think? To change the other person's mind, yeah. Okay, so you could say somebody's mind should change here. Maybe my mind should change. Maybe he understands it better and I want to understand what he's saying, and maybe I should come around to his point of view, or maybe Meir should come around to your point of view. Maybe you want to change his mind. But it's in order to, I'd say, bring the opinions together. That's why people have a discussion, right? Let's say two people are having a discussion about lahavdil, different sports teams, right? So Aaron says one sports team is better, and Meir says, Meir says, well, a different sport. Why are you exchanging this? What's the point of this exchange? Because somehow you're trying to be mekarev, you're trying to bring these different opinions together, or close the gap on them. What do you have to say, Mayor? You're going to say that too. I'd say in society, people are always looking for like-minded people, right? Something you have common with. We think the same. We have the same opinions. We have similar opinions, right? There's a certain idea that you exchange ideas in order to close the gap between them and to find common ground and to find like-minded people. I think the idea behind Shomea Ka'ona, that if I hear it, it's like I said it is, that it's not that I actually verbalize those words. There are certain mitzvahs that we have, or certain obligations, chiyuvim, that we have to say certain things. It's not the actual enunciation of the word. It's not the actual, that those words actually escaped my mouth, but our words represent what's going on between our ears. Our words represent our opinions, our thoughts on any given matter. So if I hear something, and that's why we put in bold over here, kivein libai, it's very important just to hear it, but if you were not mechav in your heart, if you didn't have any intention to those words that you said, that you agree with them, and you're directing your heart in that direction, if you don't have that, so then you are not yotzei, because very, very often, words and conversation, it's not about the actual heat and sound waves that are escaping your lips. It's more about the ideas that are generated in your brain that are coming to an audible level through your voice box. Does that make sense to everybody? So let's say by Hallel, we say that you could be yotzei with Shomea Ka'ona. You could be yotzei with Shomea Ka'ona. I don't actually have to say Baruch Haba. The Chazan could say that. I could listen and I could think those words. Why am I yotzei? I didn't put those words out of my mouth, but I was mechaven my leiv that these words, as many, many words and many chiyuvim that we have to say certain words, it's not about the words we say, it's about making sure that we're on the same page with what's being said. Right now, I could look around the room, and if I see somebody nods their head at me, that means that they're getting what I'm saying, they're on the same page. If somebody goes like this, that means they're not on the same page. that's the idea behind Shomea Ka'ona, in which case Shomea Ka'ona is going to work when the chiyuv is to make sure that whatever's being said is part of that person's opinion. It's part of that person's process. It's ingrained in their brain, those ideas that he is listening to, and he's mechav in his heart, and that's what Shomea Ka'ona will do for us. Question, go ahead. Yes. That would imply. If you would say without any kavana, and if somebody would listen and not have any kavana that I agree to what's being said, or I understand what's being said, you would not be yoitze. That would imply exactly that. What? Yeah, and the first person as well, and the listener as well, meaning both ways. If he said these words without having kavana, without any kavana, without knowing what he's doing. What? Okay, but we wouldn't make another bracha because he's not going to get it the second time. But if a person has absolutely no idea what he's saying, what? It's a yoitze, or you don't repeat it. It's a different thing. I don't think you're yoitze. You have not fulfilled your obligation, or there's certainly something lacking in the obligation. I don't know if the necessity to repeat it would be the test as to whether you're yoitze or not. But you certainly have not fulfilled your obligation. If you say the word shahakol niya bidvaroi, and you don't know that this is a blessing that you must make on a cup of coffee, you think you are saying over last night's game score in Japanese, I don't think you're yoitze the bracha. It could be you don't repeat it because you're no reason. What are you going to accomplish by repeating it? But I don't think you're going to be yoitze the bracha. I don't know.
Basically, like it's a tier, it's a combination. The main thing is the kavanah.
Yeah.
But you need the words.
The words have to come out. The words have to come out, and I could latch on to that. I could say, yeah, I agree with that. I'm mechav my mind to that idea. And if that's the idea behind it, the idea behind Shomea Ka'ona, it's a mental thing. It's showing that you're on the same page with something that's been said, and that's what you need to be yoitze. So then going back to the Gemara over here, like why didn't we find an Amoira to tell me the halacha that Shomea Ka'ona? We went to the professionals. We went to the teachers. We went to the pedagogues, the darshaners, right? So that makes sense because they're telling you that people could be on board with the ideas that you're saying just by listening and just by nodding their heads or just by saying amen. So that's the thought I have. I don't know, take it or leave it, but I found it very curious. Why does the Gemara tell me, well, how do we know Shomea Ka'ona? Let's go ask these four groups of people. The wise men, the teachers, the heads of the big askanim and all the public speakers. Why are we asking them whether Shomea Ka'ona works? Why are they the authority on Shomea Ka'ona? Because the answer is that they're the teachers, they're the ones that are delivering messages, and they're the ones that could tell you that just by listening to something, somebody could get on board with that message and bring their mind around to that point of view. Okay, so that's what we have to say about Shomea Ka'ona. Let's move on to a practical application in this week's parsha. Moving on to these psukim. Anybody have any questions so far? Is it pretty clear? Last week I wasn't feeling as well, and I think I kind of rushed through a little bit, and maybe I didn't give guys opportunity to ask questions and get things clear. Everybody's on. Is everybody Shomea Ka'ona right now? Yeah? Okay. Okay, beginning of this week's parsha, we have the mitzvah bikurim, right? We take the first fruit from the Zayin Minim, bring them up to Beis HaMikdash in a pretty basket, we give it to the kohen, and it's a gift to the kehanim. So let's start these psukim. V'lakachta mireshis kol priya adama, you should take from the first of all the fruit of the land, asher tavi mi'artzecha, that you'll bring from your land, Eretz Yisrael, Hashem, asher Hashem elikacha neisein lach, that Hashem gives to us. The samta v'tene, put it in the basket. V'alachta l'makom, and you should go to the place asher yivcha Hashem elikacha l'shakin shmei sham. You should go to the place that Hashem decided to rest His name there, which is where? Where's that place? Well, Yerushalayim, Beis HaMikdash. Excellent. Okay, so you take the basket with the fruit, you go up to Beis HaMikdash, and now comes the next pasuk. V'anisa, not the next, a few psukim later. V'anisa v'amarta. Vanisa literally means you should respond and you should say. You should respond and you should say, Lifnei Hashem Elekecha, Arami Oived Avi, and you go through the history of Klal Yisrael that we started off in a very bad time with Lavan. Lavan was oppressing Yaakov. Vayered Mitzrayim, we went down to Mitzrayim and we were slaves down there. Vayagar Sham Bimsei Ma'at, and I didn't write the rest of it. We lived there as a few people, and then we ended up getting this big, beautiful Yitzias Mitzrayim and going up to Eretz Yisrael. Hashem gave us a land, and the land was able to produce beautiful fruit, and here we are. So this is something that we have to do when we come to Beis HaMikdash with our Bikurim. Torah tells us you have a mitzvah, Vanisa v'amarta, you should respond and you should say this paragraph of the history of Klal Yisrael that we started from humble beginnings, and here we are living in Eretz Yisrael, everybody with their vineyard, everybody with their field. Look how great it is. Thank you so much, Hashem, for giving us this land of Eretz Yisrael and the produce that it puts out. Okay, that's the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to say this parsha of Bikurim. Happens to be, Rashi translates the word Vanisa, or he doesn't translate, he brings a Gemara in Saita that says, Vanisa means Bikol Ram. Bikol Ram. Yoni. Bikol Ram. If I speak in a Kol Ram, if I speak in a loud voice, what's the purpose of speaking in a loud voice? Gets people's attention. Right? It gets the message across a little clearer, right? Kol Ram is about delivering the message. If I would ask, let's say there would just be a mitzvah over here, it wouldn't be like what we were talking about, Shomע, כעונה. It would just be, the mitzvah is to actually verbalize these words. Do you think it would matter whether it's done b'kol ram, if it's done loudly, or if it's done quietly? Do you think, meaning, you said the words. It's very hard to even, measure that, right? What's considered loud, what's considered quiet? And the Torah tells me I should say this loudly. So I think, and hopefully we'll see in the next line in the Rambam, I think that the idea over here behind Bikurim is that you're going and you're with this basket and you're expressing your Akaras HaToiv to Hashem for giving us Eretz Yisrael and giving us this fruit. And you say it loudly. Why? To express this idea. That this idea should it should take root in your head, and it should become part of who you are and what you think. Let's go down to the Rambam now. Berishaina. Originally, Rambam's going through a little bit of history. Kol mi shehaya yodea likros kairei. There were plenty of illiterate people, and anybody that knew how to read, they'd bring their basket with their fruit up to the Beis HaMikdash, and they would read this Parsha Bikurim of Arami Oived Avi. V'chol mi she'eino yodea likros, and anybody that didn't know how to read, let's say you had somebody that was illiterate, couldn't open up a chumash, they couldn't read it. Makrin oisoi, so the Kehanim or somebody, they'd have an appointed person that would read for him. Nimnu elu, she'ein yoidin likros milahavi. The people that didn't know how to read stopped bringing their Bikurim. Why did they stop bringing their Bikurim? What? They were embarrassed. Very good. They were embarrassed. They're embarrassed. Right? They don't want to be called out in front of everybody. They're illiterate. They cannot read. So nimnu elu, they stopped bringing their Bikurim. In order that they shouldn't get embarrassed. Hiskinu Beis, so Beis Din made a rule. Shiu makrin esmi shehu yodea kami she'ena yodea, that nobody read the Parsha Bikurim, and that they would have somebody there that would read the Parsha Bikurim for absolutely everybody.
Like when they card me.
Right? Yes. That's right, right? Rabbi Nussbaum goes to a store to buy a bottle of wine for Shabbos, and they ask him for his ID, and he's clearly over 21, he's clearly over 40, right? But yet they card him. Why? So in order that the Mayor Katz that just hit 21, according to his older brother's ID, shouldn't feel like singled out that he wasn't carded. So the Rambam says is that originally they were reading for some people, then people stopped coming because they were embarrassed. So now everybody gets read for. Nobody. Amir Hashem Mehira Yibana Beis HaMikdash. We're all going to start bringing Bikurim again. We're going to go up to the Beis HaMikdash. We're going to open up the Chumash and start. And you just be quiet. You listen. We're going to read it and you listen. So it seems very clear from the Rambam that the Parsha Bikurim does not actually have to be read by the person that's bringing it. Somebody else could read it, and you will listen to the Parsha, and that's how you will be Yotzei. So as far as Bikurim goes, this mitzvah to say Arami Oived Avi, we are yotzei that mitzvah, same way that we could be yotzei Hallel with the concept, with the rule of Shomea Ka'ona. Everybody got that? The Rambam says by Mikra Bikurim, you could be yotzei with Shomea Ka'ona. Why we see? Because they appointed somebody to read for everybody. You have a mitzvah to read it, Mendel. How are you being yotzei your mitzvah? Shalom, how are you being yotzei? Zevi, by listening to somebody else, and the Rambam clearly says that by Bikurim, somebody else read for everybody.
Even though that person was the chayyim.
What?
Even though that person was the chayyim.
Good point. The next piece in the Torah over here, also we read this morning, is that there's a bunch of separations and gifts that we give from our produce other than Bikurim. Somebody's got, they grow wheat, right? So there's Trumas and Meisers, right? Truma we give to the Kohen, Meiser we give to the Levi, and then the first and the second and the fourth and the fifth year, there's Meiser Sheni that we take up to Yerushalayim and we eat there. The third and the sixth year, there's Meiser Ani that we give to the poor people. So when a person grows fruit, there's all types of separations and gifts that he has to give off to the Kohen, to the Levi, to the poor person. He has to take it up to Yerushalayim. And very often it might not necessarily be so convenient to, just because you have a little bit of food, to run up to Yerushalayim with it, or to give it all to the Levi, or to give it all to the poor person. Sometimes people would pile it together and they'd collect it for a little bit, and then they would give it to the Kohen or to the Levi, or to the poor person, or bring it up to Yerushalayim. They bring it up in bulk. Okay, so you didn't like bring up one grape at a time to Yerushalayim. They didn't give 1 cup of wheat to the ani at one shot. They would wait for it to collect a little bit, and then they would give a respectable size gift. It's just an efficient way of doing things. So the Torah tells us, let's go into these next psukim. Ki sechale la'aser es kol maser tvuascha. When you will finish separating all of your gifts of your grain, B'shana Ashlishis on the third year, Shnas HaMaiser, the year of Maiser, B'nasata LaLevi, make sure you give it to the Levi, Lager, to the Ger, Yasayim V'almana, which is referring to the poor people, V'yachlu B'sharecha V'saveyu, and they'll eat it in their homes, they'll eat it in their areas, and they'll be satisfied from it. So, the Torah is telling us that make sure that even though you're collecting this stuff, make sure at the end of the third year that you give it all away. Don't collect it indefinitely. You can't hold on to it for 4 years, right? First year, second year, third year. At the end of the third year, make sure that the Levi got everything that you're holding on to. Make sure that the poor people got everything that they're holding on to. That you shouldn't amass it for too long. Okay? That's the mitzvah. Make sure that you get it to them. Now there's a mitzvah to say something. So after you've given everything away and you make sure that you've emptied out your house, I don't have anything that belongs to the Levi, I don't have any Meiser Ani that belongs to the poor person. So now the Torah gives me a mitzvah to say something. V'amarta lifnei Hashem eleikecha, and you should say in front of Hashem, Biarti hakodesh min habayis, I've removed all the holy things, all these gifts, all these maisrois, I've removed them from my house. V'gam nasativ leLevi lager v'liyasoim v'lalmana, I've given it to the Levi and to the poor people. Gechol mitzvascha, just like your directions, just like the mitzvahs you gave. Asher tzivisani, like you've commanded me. Le'avarti mi mitzvaysecha, I didn't transgress any of the directions. Le'shachachti, I didn't forget about them. So you have a mitzvah after you've emptied out your trumas and maisrus, and you've given the meiser to the Levi and to the meiser to the ani, you have a mitzvah, v'amarta livnei Hashem eleikecha, to say these words. To say these words, Biarti HaKodesh min habayis, I've removed it, and I've done everything, I followed all the instructions and all the halachas about giving away trumas and maisrus. Okay? It's another mitzvah. Sounds similar to what we talked about by Bikurim. You bring your Bikurim up to the base of Mikdash, you have a mitzvah to say something. Over here, you give away all the maisers to their intended destination. And again, the Torah tells you there's a mitzvah to say something. Biarti HaKodesh min habayis, I followed all the instructions. I've done it all correctly. Okay, anybody have any questions about this mitzvah of meiser and making sure that it all gets to the proper destination, and then the added mitzvah of making this proclamation, of announcing, of saying that you've done it correctly. Okay? Two-part mitzvah, again, similar to Bikurim. You bring the Bikurim, you have what to say. Over here, you deliver the meiser, you make sure the meiser gets to where it needs to go, and then you have a mitzvah to declare that you've done that you followed all the instructions, and everything got to where it needs to be. Question? Okay, it's a good point. So you're right. If you misgave the Trumas and Maisris, so then you can't say it. If you didn't follow the directions, let's say you didn't even separate them in the right order, so you cannot say this. This is a declaration that a person says after he's done a job well done. If he followed all the directions, all the halachas of Trumas and Maisris, he separated them properly, and he gave them to where they need to be, so this is the next step. There's a mitzvah to make this declaration, I've done the job correctly. If you didn't do the job correctly, you can't make this declaration. What? That's a good question. That's, what happens if a person doesn't do things correctly. Over here, we're talking about a person that did something correctly. He followed the instructions. Now he has a mitzvah to declare that he did it properly. Is there any recourse for a person that did it improperly? Perhaps. Would he not make this declaration if he didn't do it improperly? If he did it improperly, no, he would not make this declaration. And he would lose out on this mitzvah of saying it and doing it properly. Go ahead. Good question. That's the last question, right? On the does Shomea Ka'ona work by Vidui Maisris? This is what we call Vidui Maisris. This proclamation, I've done it all properly. It's called Vidui Maisris. I'm confessing that I've done the mitzvah of giving and separating my Maisris correctly. So Shalom Rosenberg asked a brilliant question, right? Question number 5 over here. Does Shomea Ka'ona work by Vidui Maisris or not? Well, we know that it worked by Bikurim, right? Didn't we say that it worked by Bikurim? Didn't the Rambam say that anybody that was embarrassed or they stopped letting people read because they wouldn't come, they were embarrassed, so they had a designated reader?
No, but here it says you have to say it.
What?
It says you have to.
Well, it says V'amarta lifnei Hashem alekech. By Bikurim it also says V'anisa ve'amarta lifnei Hashem alekech. By Bikurim it also said you have to say it. But we said it's like you said it, you're yoitze, you fulfill your chiyuv of saying it by listening to somebody, with Shomea Ka'ona, right? So by Bikurim, we established based on the Rambam that we're yoitze with Shomea Ka'ona. There's a mitzvah to say it by Bikurim too. You have a mitzvah to say Kiddush, but you're yoitze with Shomea Ka'ona. What about by Vidui Meiser? What about by Vidui Meiser? We're going to see the Rambam in a minute, and he's going to tell us what happens by Vidui Meiser, I believe. But go ahead. Question? Why not? Because not everybody could read, right? Not everybody did it properly, or not everybody owns land. You're right. This is a mitzvah for somebody that owns land, grew fruit, gave the Trumas and Maisris correctly, and now he has a mitzvah to declare this statement. You're right. Not every. Should I tell you something? There's a mitzvah for Kehanim to give a bracha b'rachas Kehanim. I don't have that mitzvah. I can't do that mitzvah. What? It's not what? Well, why not? Bikurim is also similar to that. Bikurim is only for landowners that grow Shivas Aminim. If I own land and I grow oranges, I don't have a mitzvah Bikurim, right? So when you have that mitzvah of Bikurim, so now you bring the Bikurim, you have to say something, but you are yoitze with Shomea Ka'ona with the rule of hearing it and being mechaven your heart works. What about by this declaration by Maisris? So let's see the Rambam. So somebody go ahead, question.
So, are you saving your masters in the language you speak, since it's not like the specific variable, but it's like declaring?
That's a good question. Good question. There's a Gemara in Say that talks about it. I think the answer is you could. Okay, so let's take a look at the Rambam, because let's put it like this, right? If we had a problem with illiterate people by Bikurim, right? That people were embarrassed to come, and then they made this rule that nobody read their own Parsha Bikurim because people can't read. So illiterate people didn't go away by Meiser either, right? Let's say somebody can't read, right? So we found a good solution for them. Shomea Ka'ona. You listen, you have in mind what I'm saying, and that's going to work for you. So even though you can't read, you could still fulfill your chiyuv with Shomea Ka'ona. Give me another option, another solution. Well, give me another solution. Somebody can't read something. What? Who said that? Who said that? Mordechai. Well, say it again. Repeat after me, right? You don't necessarily need to use Shomea Ka'ona. Shomea Ka'ona means don't repeat anything. Just listen, stay put, and have in mind what I'm saying. But you could also do a repeat after me option, right? Let's take a look at the Rambam, then I'll get to the question. Let's get to your question first. What do you have, Chaim Tzvi? What's your question? You don't have to? No, but the Torah says Vamarta, you have to say it. What? Oh, okay, well, maybe you're putter, but we're talking about a situation where a person is chayiv. Person has land, and he did everything properly. He gave everything he needs to give, and now he must make this declaration. Is there anything... I see if you guys struggling with this idea. Why can't you just? Oh, no, it doesn't. I don't know if you have to read it from text. You could read it by heart. I don't know if it has to be read inside. But these words must be said. Biarti HaKodesh min habayis. I've removed my maestros from the house. These words must be said. The Torah gives me a mitzvah to say these words. And these words are mitzvah for anybody that separated and gave trumas and maestros properly. Is everybody on the same? I'm not sure what's.
I don't know. You didn't get to a question.
What? Yeah, no question yet. No question. Okay. Okay. What do you have, Frime?
Would it make sense that you can't do that with Parshas Bikurim because for Torah you have to read it from the Torah?
No, you don't actually have to read it from the Torah. If you know it by heart, that would be fine too. It has to be said. The Torah says it has to be said. The Marta. It has to be said. Late for that. Okay. So let's see what the Rambam says about Vidui Maisrais. Vidui Zen Nemar B'chol Lashon. This vidui, who brought that up? It could be said in any language. You could say it in English if you'd like. Shenemar, as it says, V'amarta lifnei Hashem elekecha b'chol lashon shata omer. Any language that you speak. Says the Rambam like this: V'chol echad ve'echad omer b'fnei atzmai. Each person says it by themselves. V'im rotzu rabim lihisvadois ke'echad misvadim. And if a group of people want to say this vidoy, they want to make this declaration that they gave their trumas and maasers properly, they biarti HaKodesh min habayis, they want to do it in a group, they could do it together in a group. What is the Rambam saying over here? You could do it together. So the Rambam starts out saying everybody says it by themselves, so that means that we each need to say it. What happens if somebody doesn't know the words? Repeat after me. Let's say it together as a group. What does that tell you about over here? Does the rule Shomea Ka'ona work by Vidui Meiser? It does not. So that's interesting. We see it does not work by Vidui Meiser, but we see that it does work by Parshas Bikurim. It does not work by Vidui Meiser. It does work by Parshas Bikurim. I'm going to review one thought over here. Again, by Bikurim, what's this statement that we're making by Bikurim? What did we say? What's this statement? What's the nature of the statement we're making by Bikurim? What? By Bikurim. Again, there's Bikurim and there's Meiser. What statement are we making? Arami Oived Avi, we're going through the history of Klal Yisrael and we're thanking the Rebbeinu Shalom for giving us a good land that takes care of us. What? So what's the nature of that paragraph that we say? Arami Ovid Avi, and now Hashem, you brought us to Eretz Yisrael, and look how good it is. What's the nature of that message? Thinking. Gratitude. Where's the gratitude guy? Gratitude. Right? Yeah. It's a gratitude thing. Right? What's the nature of the statement that we say when we say, Bi'arti HaKodesh min habayis, I've taken care of the trumas and maestras, and I've separated them correctly, and I've delivered them correctly. What's the nature of that statement? What? That's right. I'm just saying I followed instructions. It's a different type of a statement. It's a different type of a statement. By one of them, Shomea Ka'ona works, by Bikurim, says the Rambam. People didn't know how to read. We didn't embarrass them. We had somebody read for everybody. And by Maestras, he says, people didn't know how to read, then they could do it together. Not that Elia, you could do it for Shaya, or Shaya could do it for Elia, but we could all do it together, and that's how we'll solve this problem of somebody that's embarrassed and can't read it or can't say it themselves. So I ask you why. What's the difference? Why the difference in halacha? Why the difference in halacha? Why do we see that Shomea Ka'ona could work for Bikurim, but we don't see Shomea Ka'ona works for this declaration that I followed the instructions by Meiser, by Vidui Meiser. Biarti HaKodesh Min Abayis. Shomea Ka'ona doesn't work. The solution over there is that we have to do it all together. What do you have to say? Well, by Wiedermeister, we're saying that it must be said. Even if you don't know the words, so you'll just repeat after somebody. You'll say it together in a group. But you got to actually put those words out of your mouth. By Bikurim, it's good enough, Shomea Ka'ona. You listen and you hear. Why the difference? I put that as an extra credit, but Shaya, go ahead. What do you have to say?
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Okay. We're like,
Yeah. What?
It's about you. It's about you saying that I gave the word.
Say it a little louder.
That I gave the way to what's it called? So someone else can't say it in place of mine.
Somebody can't say it for you. Somebody can't say it for you. Somebody cannot say what you've done. You can latch on to somebody's idea and become like-minded with somebody else just by listening and being mechav in your heart. But when you have an obligation to say what you have done, only you can do that. Those are words that must escape your lips. That's what you're trying to say. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. There's some very, very big Talmidei Chacham that said that answer as well. That's Chaim Brisker and others. But
Some other
yeah, and Shaya Koka, right? Yeah, I think that's the idea, and just going back to again by Bikurim, you know, when the Torah introduced the mitzvah of saying this whole thing of Arami Ovid Ovi and thank you Hashem, the Torah says Vanisa v'Amart, and Rashi translate Vanisa. You say it loudly. That word is missing by Meiser. It doesn't say Vanisa v'Amarta by Meiser. And who said? What's the purpose of saying something loud, Yoni? You get attention. You get people to latch on to the idea. People pay attention. They understand it better, right? It's a better presentation. So I would tell you is that in the Beis HaMikdash for Bikurim, they would probably hire the most popular speaker on like Torah Anytime to read it for everybody in order to get everybody to really, to really sink their teeth into it, right? Rabbi Shushan would be there. He would be hired. He would be the designated, Beis HaMikdash reader for Parshas Bikurim because everybody, he would say it with a dramaticism and the message would come across crystal clear. And that's the idea of Anisa by Bikurim because it's a message of thank you Hashem for taking care of us. By Bikurim, it's I follow directions. Doesn't have to be dramatic. Doesn't have to be loud. What? Sorry, by Meisers, it's just I follow directions. I've done all the things properly. Doesn't have to be dramatic. Doesn't have to be loud. Hashem told me I must declare that I follow the directions. And that's why the word vanisa, loudly, perhaps, is missing by Vidui Meiser. Over there, the Torah just says, V'amarta lifnei Hashem elekecha. Say it in front of Hashem. That's all, folks. Any questions? Go ahead.